we got that guy, Jeff Gallashaw of the CINEFILES. It's all cinephilia around here. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, I am.
That's absolutely incredible. Such magic of Skype technology. And there was no issues, even right off the bat, was there?
Oh, yeah, none. But that check didn't clear that you sent me.
Exactly. My internet wasn't clear. My check didn't clear. And my internet's actually called Clear. Like, that's the name of the company. So there's double, triple meanings, just like film. And, okay, so you are part of the CINEFILES, which is an online movie discussion show, sort of a panel discussion of film. And you also have your own separate episodes called Unfinished Business with Jeff Gallashaw. What is the business? First of all, did you take that title from the EPMD album?
No, I should probably know more about hip-hop history, but I didn't even know that was apparently not only an album cover, but there is also a band called Unfinished Business out there, too.
That I would expect, yeah. All I know is that, the old school rap group EPMD, every one of their albums had the word business in the title. So, and Unfinished was one of them. But I thought that might be a connection, but no, this is actual unfinished business on your mind about films. So what led you to that, to this particular show?
What led me? Well, I am on the CINEFILES, so
yes.
Basically, the CINEFILES essentially not only want to be a movie review or commentary show, but we would like to make it essentially a community for more of the people who are true film fans, not just the occasional viewer, to have, their voices heard, or even just to help, if they want to make their own films or their own projects, because it's sort of like when you went on Ain't It Cool News at the beginning, they were all really just more commentators and news. But as, the years went on, they went out and made their own films and, got to know studio people and got funding for their own films. So essentially, we're trying to give the power back to the public instead of, you reading reviews like, oh, this critic says this is the funniest film of the year, and then you go see it and it's like a crock of shit. It's like really bad. We basically wanted something so, like, when somebody's really looking for a good review of a film, or from more of a mind state of somebody who has to pay $13 to see this, we could give an honest opinion like, okay, this is good about the film, but you could probably wait for home video realistically if you didn't want to. And
sorry.
No problem. Okay, you're being polite. No, but also, it's also I'm a wannabe filmmaker, as are some of the other people on the CINEFILES. So I named my production company Unfinished Business. So when I was going through the name for a show, they were like, well, why don't you just use your company name? It's that much easier. And when you finally start making films, it'll be linked to that. So that is how Unfinished Business also got its name. But I also like the ideology of Unfinished Business that, no matter how hard I try, I'm starting late in this game in life. I'm never going to finish everything I ever want to accomplish. But at least, I'm trying.
Yeah, you have to be in the rap game to do all that stuff. Like,
true.
To finish everything. But it's funny because it is quite apropos, because when you talk film, there always seems to be that one thing that lingers that isn't quite right, or sort of sticks in your brain as something a little bit off base. Even in something you like, you say, well, there was that one thing. I don't know why they didn't patch this up, or this one thread was hanging, or this one performance was weird and off. So it really is. There is a lot of unfinished business out there in cinema land.
Exactly. And a lot of filmmakers, well, I'm not going to say all, but some filmmakers, like, let's say Scorsese or Brian De Palma, they always, when they would make films, they always want to go back in there and either re-edit, or they'd like to add a scene, or they always talk about scenes they wish they had filmed that were in the script, but for whatever reason they couldn't make it.
Right.
So, even though they're obviously proud of what they're putting on screen, because if not, they'd like totally take their name off of it, it still might be to them unfinished or something that is that project. I had to release it out into the world, but if I would have had more time, I could have did this and it could have been better, in my view.
Yeah, even I was talking with someone the other day and they said every video project is basically ongoing. It's never truly finished in your mind.
I think that's true. It's always like, even I haven't had many or any, but it's also the same of relationships where there's always, you date a bunch of people, but then let's say 10 years from now, you're always like, that's the one I should have settled down with, the one who got away.
The 10 who got away.
I wish I had 10 who got away.
Right.
I don't even have one who got away. So, it's never ending. We just become content with ourselves and whatever we do because we have to accept it. And
Hello. You there? You just dropped off the face of the map.
Oh, well, same thing with you because I didn't hear anything.
Dude, it's freaking the studios, man. They're trying to stop this telecast.
Yes, they're trying to silence me, though I've already probably shot myself in the foot many times.
Right.
And trying to get a
which we'll get to. We'll get to.
Okay.
Yeah, well, actually, let's get to that right now. You have a video titled "Why I May Never Work in Hollywood."
Yes. Please don't promote it too much.
Well, you wouldn't want anyone to watch it or anything.
No, I just want fans, but don't tell anybody who's actually in power to watch it.
Well, if I recall, I watched it last night. It's basically a rant on why you don't think Steven Spielberg is the absolute greatest thing of all time, pretty much, right?
Yes, he's a human being and not a god. That is what I said.
What?
In effect.
How dare you?
Oh, trust me, I've said worse things. Not about Mr. Steven Spielberg, though. But yes, I've said worse things. I'll admit, like, when we first started doing the CINEFILES, I was not media savvy at all. And it made it sound personal when I would critique things, more personal into their lives. But I've learned over the years, I'm here to critique what the product you put out. I don't care about your personal life. Whatever you do in your personal life, that is you.
Well, I mean, there's nothing to critique personally, even there at least with Spielberg. I mean, he's a pretty down the straight and narrow middle path sort of guy. He's not one of these crazy people directors. I can't think of a specific name, but there's a lot of fucking weirdos out there.
Well, yes, there are. I'm not going to mention any names because,
please do.
Again. Okay. I'm sure. For all of you non-youngsters,
right?
There was that whole when Woody Allen first started dating Soon Yi. It was all over the. Yeah, it was a big thing in the press, and a lot of people. There's a lot of backlash against him. But even though I wasn't a big fan of him then, I decided not to let his personal life interfere if I thought his art was actually that great. And I've had this argument with people everywhere over other artists that like, oh, well, this person's a sicko, this person's a pervert. But my thing is, okay, but if you totally negated, great works of art or creativity from people who didn't have the highest moral fiber, you wouldn't have as many classics as you have out there now. I mean, you have Lewis Carroll, who according to history was kind of a pedophile, but we don't have proof. I don't have the pictures and evidence to prove it. But if not for, but we all still read like Alice in Wonderland to our children. So it's like
to the kid. That's how he got in there in the first place.
Well, it was also he was obsessed with his next door neighbor's daughter. So
interesting, yeah.
And then it's like, but it's sort of like Finding Neverland, where it's J.M. Barrie is obsessed with his the kids, and he's just a quirky fellow. Whereas in real life, supposedly he became obsessed with the little boy who he based Peter Pan on, who later committed suicide over it.
What the boy did?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, Peter Pan sort of is the handbook for feel-good pedophilia.
Or as some might call it, Arrested Development.
Right. Also a movie coming down the track.
that I am looking forward to.
Interesting. I can't really comment on it. I've seen a few episodes of the show. It didn't spark my brain all that much, but I know people fucking love it, so they're probably anticipating pretty heavily.
Well, I think it's probably something you have to see the whole of to really like get into it and love it. It's something you have. It's sort of like almost like Twin Peaks, where you have to get in from the beginning to totally understand everything that's going on.
Like any good TV show of the modern age.
Yeah, whereas if you just come in the middle of it, you might like it, but you probably would love it if you watched it from the beginning.
Yeah, that seems like a project where it was just unrelenting fan pressure that never let up since the show was stopped, and finally squeezed this diamond of a movie out of, well, it's not out yet, but squeezed it out of the coal of their fandom, and now it's finally happening.
Well, that's what I like to think with the Cinephiles and Unfinished Business community we're trying to do is that I try to preach is that demand more quality from your movies that the studios are giving you, or else you're just going to be nothing but, superhero films. That is why I like at the end of Unfinished Business, I promote, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which has been like, how many years has it been since that movie came out? But now I've opened up myself to still promoting that one, but recommending other films at the end of the show for other people to hopefully discover.
Yeah, now, I love Scott Pilgrim, but why specifically that movie do you keep promoting?
I thought one of the reasons, because I would say probably ever since Scott Pilgrim, there's always a film that I feel comes out that is directed towards the film fan or, let's say, film geek audience.
Right.
And it says, come see me, come see me. And then for some odd reason, half the film geeks feel insulted because they're like, look at the studios trying to give us what we want. And then they're like, oh, I'll wait for home video. Then they watch it on home video. And then, as I've told them to, they fucking love it. But then they sit there and wonder, why do the studios not make these films for us? Because when Scott Pilgrim or movies like Scott Pilgrim are out, you all say, I'll watch it online, home video, video on demand. So they're like, see, we gave them what they want. They don't want it. So let's make Thor 5.
Right, for the masses, for the real people. I think, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say my favorite word to say, exactly.
Of course. Yeah.
Why else?
I think that I read an article recently or heard someone talking about Scott Pilgrim where they said, well, it proves that geek culture isn't quite as money-making popular as they want to believe because they made the so-called ultimate geek movie, Scott Pilgrim, and it didn't do so hot at the box office. So that I think there's problems with that argument, but you could say that like you said, people felt like they were pandering to them a little much, or maybe it's just the content because all these superhero Thor 5 and all that started as geek culture, but now it's just mainstream. It's as mainstream as it gets, obviously.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of what is geek culture has now been propagated to become cool culture, and now you have all the cool people like, oh, I'm really a geek at heart. I love this. But 9 times out of 10, if you quiz them really on certain things in the geek culture, they wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about. Because when I grew up, if you were a geek, you had to either hide it, or if you were proud of it, you kind of got made fun of, or, well, I didn't get beat up, but I could see somebody getting their ass kicked for it.
Yeah, I was going to say you had to learn karate or get your ass beat.
Exactly, which is probably why I still love the original Karate Kid movie.
Yeah, and I've heard people diss that too, and I just cannot agree. I think it's quite a good film.
I think it's a good film. I mean, I think people have just seen movies like it so much, like Rocky, and, they're used to that formula, and they're like, oh, you're just giving us what we want, because I guess karate was becoming popular in the 80s. But I'm like, if you really sit down and watch the film, as cliched against Asians and racist it is against them in some aspects, it really is, deep down a good film of good versus uncertain evil, because it's not like they ever gave Johnny a shot and made him look like, I don't know, a human being. He was just all evil. Like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to break your legs, LaRusso. You know, it's like, oh, okay, Johnny. You couldn't just say, hey, man, stay away from my girl, okay? No, he's got to, like, beat the hell out of you and put you near death so many times.
Yeah, I mean, if your name's Johnny in the 80s, you're going to be a badass asshole.
Which is funny because William Zabaka kind of played a villain in 2 other films that were Johnny-like, except they didn't know karate.
One of those being Back to School, right?
Back to School, where he was, let's wait for it, a champion diver, right, of all things. And then a little movie that I love that is pure 80s cheese, Just One of the Guys.
Oh, my God. Does it get any better? I must have seen that flick 40 times on cable back in the day, you know, back 20 years ago or whatever.
Oh, yes. Back in the good old days of HBO, where most teen movies went to die and become popular and become gods to this next generation.
Yeah, that's one of those movies probably most human beings on the planet have seen, yet they don't know what it is or the title or anything.
Oh, I love that movie. I actually have the DVD. It is because of HBO that I'm a DVD addict now, because I keep getting all these films from my childhood that mostly stand up. There are some movies I won't mention, like The Wizard with Fred Savage, that
don't
now I
it.
watch. Yeah. I won't. But I watch it now and I wonder, I remember the joy of watching it, but I also look at the quality and I'm like, what entertained me about this? This is so bad.
Well, maybe I'm very sophisticated, but I remember being quite disappointed upon seeing it the first time in the theater. I think because maybe I expected it to be more of a showcase for the Mario video game or something. Or maybe I expected Fred Savage to actually be the wizard rather than his fucking manager or whatever he is in the movie. But
you know, only autistic children can be wizards in movies.
This is true. This is very true, or at least they can be gamers. Well-heeled children can be wizards in the Potterverse, who could speak and relate. But no.
Hey, who would have known the Harry Potter verse would have given birth to 2 good actors and every British actor being employed?
Right. Yeah, they went very overboard with their theater cast of British stalwarts. I mean, yeah, it almost became a joke. Like, what other noble accented actor with a capital A can we shove in there?
Unfortunately, it became a joke in of itself, but as the films got darker, they got a lot better, surprisingly.
I'm gonna reveal myself as not a true fan at all. The only one I saw in the theater the full way through was the very last one.
Well, then you would be like every other cinephile other than me on the show.
Pretty much.
Yes, I'm the only one who not only has seen all 7 films, though I didn't see the first 2 in theaters, but I have read all the books, too.
I think you meant to say 8 films.
Oh, I forgot. 2-parter. I'm thinking in terms of books.
I know. It's really one story, but 2 films. Holy shit.
But, you know, I surprisingly enjoyed most of them after. I liked the first one, the second one, but all the other films I enjoyed.
So the second movie is crap, but every other one is watchable?
I would say so, but also that's the same way kind of with the books, too. It's like 1, great. Second book, no. And then 3 through 7, awesome.
I bet, man. I bet. It's just, it's a little too much to slog through for me personally, but I don't hate on the fandom of that particular thing. I mean, yeah.
The irony here is I don't usually like sci-fi fantasy, but I love those books.
I just love them. Oh, God.
Yes.
Just hug those shits. Just get all the books together and just group hug.
Yes, I will make my children watch them when I have them.
Right. Force them. It's total Hogwartian mind control.
Well, I know they'll make fun of Star Wars, so I have to give them something a little closer to their age.
Yes, do not show them Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen ever. And
as I have said on that Star Wars show, I like to pretend those films never existed in my brain.
I was going to say you should have George Lucas as a guest on Unfinished Business because he's always completely happy with his work and never changes it afterward.
Oh, I've said enough bad stuff about George Lucas, which is another reason why I will probably never work in Hollywood again, or at least get good special effects if I ever make a film.
I know you're gonna have to go to like frickin' all the way to Weta in New Zealand for your effects.
Yes, but don't forget, Peter Jackson's a friend of Spielberg.
Dun dun dun.
Exactly.
And what do you think about Jackson expanding expanding The Hobbit from 2 to 3 films? What do you think's behind that besides a shitload of money?
Oh, see, you took my answer.
What the hell?
I think it goes back to something I said always about Guillermo del Toro as a director.
Right.
That one of the reasons I enjoy his films is that he builds a universe, his own world, and he leaves you to explore it while there's a story guiding you through it, but you're still exploring the land. Now, I have never read The Hobbit nor any of the Lord of the Rings books, and chances are I probably never will. But I will say that when it comes to The Hobbit, you already have your built-in audience.
That's for sure.
And with Lord of the Rings, everybody thought the studios were crazy when they automatically said, no, we're going to do this as 3 films. We're not going to wait for the first one to come out and then maybe make the next 2. I think there's that same kind of thinking, but I also think that he's probably covered the film a lot, and rather than cut it down to 2 hours, he's like, but wait, I can make 3 parts, but it'll be 6 hours. So I'll just release part 1, or as I like to call Act 1 first,
right.
Then Act 2, the next year, and then Act 3 finally. And then I can maybe get another Best Director Oscar. But I have to say, in my heart of hearts, I really don't think Peter Jackson does it for the awards. I think he truly is actually passionate about what he makes.
He is definitely a super fan. I think that part of the reason he expanded The Hobbit, which is like a 400-page book or whatever, into 3 movies, is so he can get every little detail in there right off the bat. That's stuff he couldn't put in with Lord of the Rings. They had to release 4 hours of extended parts of the film just to cover what they didn't cover, and now he can just cover it from the beginning.
Well, yeah, because there's always that fanboy out there, you didn't put this in it.
Right. And that kills him. After the billions of dollars, that he's just so upset about that.
Well, it's sort of like what Kevin Smith said, why he doesn't really read reviews, because it would be where you get all this praise from, like, let's say 100 critics love your work. There's always that one critic who doesn't like your work, and that'll be the one he'll focus on. That'll be the review he will focus on. So That is why he stopped listening and also reading reviews of his work.
It's the missing tile syndrome, if you've ever heard of that, where like you have a nice floor and there's hundreds of tiles all set together, but there's one that hasn't been put in place. And obviously that's the only one you could focus on. You're not looking at the 50 other nicely laid ceramic tiles. It's just that one that leaves a hole right there in your heart.
Yes, and unfortunately, I know how that feels. Except, I don't have any work for people to critique out there. But I know how it feels like when everybody's giving you praise or everybody's saying one thing about you, but that one person doesn't like something, and that'll be the thing that bothers you forever.
It's the troll phenomenon, you might say.
Yeah, and that is why I still like to think I'm old-fashioned or old school, not, old family-style restaurant, beat your wife in the privacy of your own home old school. But, I do believe in, like, the gentlemanly thing and saying things to people face-to-face, more or less, instead of maybe attacking. I mean, if I could talk to Steven Spielberg, I'd lay these criticisms at his feet, and then he'd have me jailed. But since all I could do is talk to other film fans and see if they agree or say, these are my personal problems. I have nothing, I don't have anything personally against Steven Spielberg. It's not like if I saw him in the street, I'd punch him in the face. But if he asked me, well, what do you think of such and such film? I would have to honestly tell him, you don't need 3 endings. It doesn't need to be this long. You might want to try a new ideology. You don't have to look at everything or certain stories through the eyes of a child, considering you're in your 50s or 60s at this point. He's
in his 60s, but he's going for that 8-year-old feeling.
Yeah. But, at least I thought AI was at least a major accomplishment because it was his least happy film. But then again, he still has 3 endings for the film. So it's like, okay, just end it here.
You can't exactly be Mr. Sunshine when you're doing the Kubrick thing.
Well, I mean, okay. If you look, it was a Kubrick project, but if you look at the end credits, written by Steven Spielberg, I don't see Stanley Kubrick getting any credit there.
Oh, hell no. He was like an executive producer from Beyond the Grave or something, right?
Let me stop saying exactly. You know what I'm talking about.
You know what's no, I'm saying, yeah, it's basically. I was going to say, many ending. Oh, I've heard AI put in the category of possible pedophilia metaphors as well. What do you think about that?
I could see how some people could see it that way. I don't think it was intended that way, of course, because Steven Spielberg, in all honesty, is not a pedophile, and I'm not being sarcastic here. But I could see how it's interesting that you say that, because it's like an article I was reading on the internet where people see things in films that I don't think the directors intended them to do. But if it gets the film talked about or gives the film more artistic credit, I'd be like any other director. I'll be like, yeah, that's what I intended, when really, sometimes if I do a shot of a chair and then go to the action, sometimes I was just lazy and forgot to edit that out. It was a chair shot. But people put their own meaning. That's to show the stillness in the room, the loneliness we all feel. But it's like, no, it's just an accidental shot of a chair.
It's just second unit coverage, basically.
Which I know this will draw the ire of some people. Sometimes I think maybe that's what David Lynch does with his film. I think sometimes it's just there, and he leaves it for other people to take their interpretations of it and say, oh, this is what it really means. When really he was just like, I just thought it was a cool shot.
Yeah, Lynch has a hobby passion for taking photographs of like industrial pipes in warehouses and stuff. You've seen that, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like that's his whole thing, is to take pictures of just inanimate shit and call it art and throw it out there. Not that I don't like him, but
I love Lynch, but I think sometimes maybe that's just his interest. I mean, it's not like a director who I love, who I'm sure most people love him, hate him. It's just like John Waters, who can admit, I just put my fetishes in here. These are the things I like to watch and think about. So I put them in a story and film them, and hopefully people like them. That's
supposed to be directors' task, their mandate, if you will. I mean,
it's sort of like, okay, here we go into my film career. I have not made a produced film or filmed a produced film, but I find that sometimes when I'm writing, it seems more like therapy than actually trying to entertain the audience at certain points. But then you have to remember sometimes, even though this is a semi-autobiographical art that you're working in, you also want to put in things that will entertain people.
You would hope. It's a catharsis. It gets to the roots of performance itself and the ancient Greek theater stuff. It was supposed to exorcise the demons right out of you. Basically, it was therapy, quite literally.
Well, I think that's what it is for a lot of artists. This is something to get it out of their head and onto a piece of paper, onto film, and share with an audience. And we're all second guessing ourselves when we put it out there. But funny thing that we all find as artists is that we think we're all so individual and so unique, but then when we put the art out there, we find people who identify with it or us so much so that we find out, oh my God, I'm not alone in the world and looking at things this way. There are other people like this, which, if we're going to do Looper, brings it all back to the beginning with Cinephiles and Unfinished Business. We're not the only ones who want quality entertainment. There are other people out there who want it. They might not necessarily 100% agree with the films that we love, but they can agree, oh, that was a good film, or that a film that needs to be seen.
Yeah, there seems to be this schism out there in fandom where people like Cinephiles fans know that there's this lack of quality and these giant, helpings of shit that we're served constantly. We know it exists, we know we want something better. We don't quite know what to do about it. It's almost like a presidential election or something. Like you know, you want to get what you want in there and to change things, but you're just not. It's all uncertainty. You have this feeling like they're going to keep serving you plates of shit. And I don't know. What do you think? What do you think it's going to shape up as in the next couple decades? What are they going to give us?
They're going to give us, unfortunately, I think the old studio maxim will always stay true. Whatever's a hit will be the movies that they make. But the harder thing now you'll find, like, back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, we had definite movie stars, and the studios would pay them 20s of millions of dollars to star in stuff they knew were probably absolute shit. But they knew people would go see it just because the star is in it. But now with a lot of movie star films that were, gave the audience exactly what they thought they wanted, bombing, there's rarely a movie star now. Will Smith's still a movie star, and Tom Hanks there's people who have certain name recognition, but they can't guarantee you a dynamite opening weekend. And one of the main problems, I think, with studios, their solution right now seems to be, let's make a $200 million movie, and then we're going to release fewer of them, to try and make money, because they're afraid to do something what a gambler would do, which is maybe if we start investing in smaller bets and putting out more product, we'll have more of a guaranteed money coming back to us. Because if I put out a $200 million movie, and let's say it only makes $20 million in its first 2 weeks, it's considered a bomb. But if I budget a film, let's say $40 million, and it gains a slow audience like they used to in the old studio days, and it brings back a worldwide of $200 million, I only spent $40 and I'm getting $160 million in profit.
So you think the studios might choose to diversify their portfolios a little bit?
I said I hope they do. I didn't say they actually would do it.
Oh, you don't think they will, but it would be a nice idea.
Yes, that would be. I'm not going to guarantee you it works. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a statistics manager. But that if I personally was running a film studio, that is what I would do.
But you diss too many people, so they won't let you in there.
No, they'll be like, hey, what about this episode where you said this?
Look at this. Cue up the tape. I think, as we all know, these studios, this industry, like all industries now, is run by the bean counters. It's run by the business people with their slicked hair and their shiny suits and shoes and stuff. And I live in LA, and I'm quite familiar with the actual Hollywood, the physical location and all that. And I have noticed that so many people in the industry actually making these decisions on film have no love or knowledge for film whatsoever. Like, they really do not know shit about it.
They don't know their own product.
They do not. They do not. They took that whole don't get high on your own supply thing too literally for their movie career.
True, and now they also have my videos or my picture taped to every studio wall. Do not let him on the premises.
Right. No preview screenings, no meetings with producers, none of that shit.
Yes, I've been refused many times. Here's an interesting little story. This was before I even had a movie review show. I used to work at a movie theater, but, they always had those people outside the theaters that would say, oh, if you don't work in the movie industry, have you seen these films? Would you like to go to a free screening? And I used to always get to go to those.
Right.
And I guess one time, one of the women who I guess runs these series, she saw me working in a movie theater at a concession counter of all places, and she considered that working for the movies. So supposedly I was banned from ever seeing a preview screening in New York after that.
Yeah, you are in the industry, and maybe she figures, since you're working there, you get to go in and watch all the movies while they're showing, and that makes you too much of an insider.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up at a preview screening like, look at the lack of depth of field in this film.
That's why they always, at those screenings, they always have someone come up beforehand and say, now don't judge this too harshly. Not everything's done. Some of the sound is off, special effects, whatever. So they're priming you for a little bit of disappointment.
And after they leave, I say, liar, don't listen to his lies.
Yeah.
It is the final print. But luckily, this was before the internet, so probably now I probably would say, I checked on Ain't It Cool News. This is a final print they're showing.
Right. And I've noticed that the print they show to the test audiences is usually better than the theatrical release because it has that couple extra minutes of scenes or fleshes things out. You know, it's a little more raw, which is good.
It is, because when I used to go to the movies more often, I saw a preview screening of Shaft, the Samuel L. Jackson remake version, not the original. I'm not that old.
Right. Right.
And I remember when I saw the screening, okay, there were a few things here that are really good and a few things that don't make sense. And then I went to go see it after it was released, not by choice, but I still went.
No.
And I noticed a lot of changes that weren't necessary. Like, in particular, if anybody has watched the film, there's a scene where Christian Bale goes to Peoples Hernandez, played by Jeffrey Wright, who's sitting on a toilet, and they're actually having dialogue during this. Now, in the preview screen, there were no sound effects, so at least, you could follow the scene more, and it's like, okay, this is a serious scene. Weird location, but a serious scene. Whereas when I saw it in the finished product, they had added all these fart and poop sounds, and it seemed more like unintentional comedy than anything else.
I don't recall that, but it shows John Singleton's maturity, I would say.
Oh, you couldn't tell that from his latest film, Abduction?
I forgot that was him. I mean, I thought, after the artistic highlight that was Too Fast, Too Furious, I didn't think he could top himself. But
hey, he likes to film Tyrese. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Baby Boy and beyond, not saying anything. But yeah, he likes those 8-pack abs.
And see, this is why, again, I will never work in Hollywood for the things I say.
So let's go deeper into it. Who do you think are the best and the worst directors right now of today?
Okay.
Not going back into history.
Okay, well, it's the worst directors are the ones all of us know. Oh, Uwe Ball, come on. Yeah, who's going to sit there and say, I like him? Michael Bay, I am not a fan of him. I won't say he's a bad director. I just think his passion is in the wrong place in his films. Because he truly is an auteur. Because when you watch a Michael Bay film, you know it's a Michael Bay film.
Yes, you do. This is true.
Whereas certain filmmakers like Brett Ratner, they seem like they know how to film things, but they don't know nuance. That is the problem.
Yeah, like Ratner is this guy. I've heard him say that he has this intense passion for cinema, like as much as any human being could have. And like you say, yeah, he knows how to shoot things. You could see that he knows how to film a square of cinema, but yet somehow all the other stuff gets completely lost. Like,
what I am saying is true. What you are saying is true.
Right. Well, this whole, like you say, nuance, or some sort of depth of character. But maybe he's just so knowledgeable that he knows not to put that in there because it will scare people away.
Yes, because, when you're making Tower Heist, you're afraid of going too artsy there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I'll say this. I've actually seen movies from Michael Bay and Brett Ratner. Uwe Boll, not so much. Have you?
Trust me. Actually, here's the surprising thing. I have seen Uwe Boll films after intentionally going out to rent Uwe Boll films because for a long time, if I saw the name, I'd intentionally skip because the films he was making, like Alone in the Dark or all these video game adaptations, were not movies I would go see anyway. Right. But then he made that movie Postal, which had controversy for being so distasteful. And then I finally saw an Uwe Boll film, and I was just like, this is horrible. And I have to say, I have not been, tempted to watch another one. I will just, like how Mike against Kevin Smith says, after he's seen one, he saw them all for his taste. And that is how I feel about Uwe Boll. That is why I never really talk about Uwe Boll or his movies, because I've actually only seen one, so I can't really critique the rest, but there seems to be an overwhelming vote against those movies and hatred of them that I can say just from seeing Postal, it looked like somebody who did not know how to make a film. I don't need to see the other 6 or 7 he's made.
So Postal, not recommended viewing?
No, even though I like dirty, wrong humor, even I was just like, this is just bad. It's sort of like if I got some semi-celebrities and a home video camera and based a plot loosely and tried some Mad TV antics and I made a movie with no budget. That's what it would look like.
It sounds more interesting in concept than execution, than I'm sure it is. Yeah.
I think that's every Uwe Boll movie ever made. It sounds more interesting than it actually is sitting through it.
I was going to say, didn't Uwe Boll challenge his harshest critic to a boxing match and beat the shit out of him?
Yes, but it was a Canadian critic who worked for more of a local paper, not an actual publicized critic. He wasn't like the Roger Ebert of Canada.
Right.
And so I'm like, but that shows the maturity of him. Like, oh yeah, my movies might stink, but I'll kick your ass.
Right.
Well, said in a German accent.
It was a metaphor. It was a metaphor for how his films are muscular entertainment, I think.
Well, if you probably film that fight, they're still more entertaining than any of his films.
That's another thing he was going for.
Exactly. Oh, God damn it. Exactly.
But
also some really, okay, I'm not going to say bad directors. I'm going to say they chose the wrong field, necessarily, directors. I will say I've gone on record with me and the movie Precious have problems.
I haven't seen it, but definitely tell your story.
I just think I have no problems with the film. You know, I thought it was a powerful story and everything was great in it except for its direction. And I think, unfortunately, Lee Daniels is not that talented as a director.
And now he's got a new movie. Funny you should mention. Which
is getting horrible reviews. But they try to say, oh, it'll be a new camp classic. That's their code word for horrible. Because that's what they said with Showgirls. It's a new camp classic. Yeah, it is a new camp classic. And if you like watching naked women, it's for you 13-year-olds. But it's still a bad movie in the end.
But it's still fucking awesome, though. Maybe not.
Well, Showgirls?
I like Showgirls, but... Yeah.
I think it's a very funny movie, but unfortunately it wasn't intended to be funny. That's the problem.
But you know what? As long as the humor comes through at all, I think that's what's important. Because I like humor. Doesn't matter how you get there necessarily, but it was twisted. It's like you squeeze a lemon. Not, what you thought would come out doesn't quite get there. The juice isn't what you were expecting, but it's still juice.
Well, okay, but see, I'm not trying to attack you or the film, but if for that matter, which you say, that could be like, okay, I'm squeezing these lemons for lemonade, but what I got was shit.
Yeah. Even though you get the shit, at least it's interesting that something different came out that you were expecting. But
that's true. I mean, I'm not going to front. I have it on DVD.
Oh, yeah. I know you got it. You try to talk shit, but it's there.
Of course. I mean, I will say the best thing in it is Gina Gershon because she seems to be the only one who knows what type of film she's in.
Sure. Maybe Robert Davi a little bit?
Well, Robert Davi has always been an interesting actor.
Yes.
But my favorite was always reading an interview around the time that movie came out. And he was like, I put stuff in there that wasn't in the script like that. You look better without come on you. That was total improv. Like, that was something to be proud of there.
Yeah. Hello, Mom. I mean, yeah, he's the guy. He strikes me as a guy that would throw something like that in there. Don't know the man personally, but he has an interesting aura about him.
Yes, and he's still one of the few actors who actually looks like he could probably kick your ass in real life.
Yeah, you gotta have some scary cats around every so often. We can't all be pretty boy, sparkling clean Metro men.
Well, that goes to like one of the subjects I've always said. Like, where are our new action heroes? Where are Schwarzeneggers and Stallones? They now all look like Ben Affleck. They're all skinny and boyish.
Stallone himself has a take on that, which I can see. I find agreeable with. Which he basically said, once the '80s came to a close and Tim Burton's Batman came out, it switched over from the steroid muscular hero like him to just a guy who puts on a suit. Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, whoever. And
yeah, that's true. But that hasn't stopped Stallone from looking like he's on steroids.
Right.
But okay, let me stop picking on Stallone. But it is true because it's like I wonder where are today's Lee Marvins,
Just
somebody
badasses. Bad
exactly.
Dude. Yeah.
I mean, the ones we do have, I'm like, I like The Rock, but let's face it, he's starring in Disney movies. He doesn't have that interesting reputation that goes with role to role. He has that clean, boyish smile. Again, boyish. Where's mannish?
I know, because yeah, back in the day, guys didn't have six-pack abs or like huge wrestler bodies or whatever. They were just normal-sized, gruff, badass dudes who used the, stare downs and just mustaches, things like that. And
that's true.
Yeah, they let it shoulder the load because they didn't like work out and try to look cute and stuff. It's just like, yeah, here I am. I'm lean and mean. And nowadays, yeah, you're either, I mean, they have the big hose bags like The Rock, but then they have a lot of emo, skinny, pretty boys like your Zac Efrons or whoever, or
because he instills fear in me.
Oh hell yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or maybe unknowns like Carl Urban playing Judge Dredd.
Yes, but at least Carl Urban looks like a man.
Yeah. I mean, we still have hot chicks, which is nice. Maybe a different kind of hot chick, which goes back to the director obsession thing, which is if you like hot chicks, you probably throw them in there.
Well, yeah, of course. And also, you also got to keep in mind that I'm not saying this for all, so don't all these directors come down on me. But don't forget, as film geeks, we always have fantasized about having the prettiest girl, and now here we are directing some big budget action film, and now we get to tell her what to do on screen.
Yeah.
So that goes a little into it too. I mean, but then again, you got to keep in mind with what I like. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Megan Fox is hot too, but is that the type of woman I believably would put in a drama? No.
She's a distraction.
Yes, I mean, she's hot and all, but she's like universally hot. Whereas me, as a person and film goer, I like the quirky looking girl. I'm not into that manic pixie dream girl all the time, but like I like somebody who's a little more, I guess, woman I would see in the street. Like, let's say a Rashida Jones. Not necessarily a Megan Fox, because I don't see Megan Foxes a lot in the world.
Yeah, Rashida Jones has that niche of playing the regular chick who's a girlfriend of somebody, basically someone's girlfriend.
Exactly, but you would never see her in the action film as the damsel in distress the hero must save, and she's unbelievably beautiful, and somehow all the clothes she has gone into a tank top and some short shorts.
Yeah, right. That's the budget. That's all the budget. Now,
yeah, because we spent so much on the special effects.
Yeah, I know. You get Transformers, anybody, the first two with Megan.
I only saw the first one, thankfully.
Oh, come on, man. You need to get into the deeper elements of the plot and the story and the metaphors. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, they don't have that. Even Shia LaBeouf, whatever.
The Beef.
He even said he didn't understand what was going on half the time.
Yeah, back to Tyrese again, yet again.
Hey, a lot of action directors like to film Tyrese in a tank top.
Yes. I mean, Michael Bay was specifically referencing how he needed to keep Tyrese safe when explosions were happening behind him, and he was running away.
Yes, but we must make sure he glistens while he runs.
Yeah. I mean, there's even the scene in Transformers 1 where he's instructing the other guy to reach in his pocket to get his credit card, and he yells, left cheek, left cheek. And
okay.
Yeah.
You were watching that film a little more carefully than me.
I mean, you can't admit, like, if you've ever seen the film, it sticks in your mind, I think, intentionally from Mr. Bay.
I think it was, the problem with me was I was spending most of the movie trying to figure out which one's a Decepticon and which one's a Transformer again? Because they all look the same.
No, they're all Transformers. There's Autobots and Decepticons. Decepticons seem to have spinny, like, blade-looking things on them. Not unlike Peter Berg's Battleship with the rolling ball thing, like spiky ball aliens.
You mean the U.S. Navy versus aliens and
Yes.
just rope it into a board game?
Yeah. How could a movie based on a board game not have depth, Jeff?
I mean, once you put 32 screenwriters trying to write it, They have to find something, and let's put an unproven star in there as our main character, but then put a bunch of other stars in there just in case, like Liam Neeson, who has never. I am convinced that he has never said no to a paycheck at this point.
At this point, yeah, because you want to be an actor and you want to do good work, but then you eventually have stuff to pay for, and you have a house with a pool and kids and shit.
How is Liam Neeson supposed to pay for all the bling he wears if he doesn't say yes to Battleship?
Absolutely, yeah. You think he's like this stately Irish guy, but no, he's popping bottles at the club every night, right?
I see him every week going into a club in his yellow Lamborghini as he burns $100 bills lighting cigars in front of the homeless.
You saw that too?
I'm telling you, TMZ should be on top of this.
Yeah, have they ever TMZ'd Liam Neeson? That's the next question.
I don't know, but I take the job of being the guy who stands out his apartment and take him. I am on Liam Neeson duty.
Now, when it comes to that TMZ celebrity catching sort of stuff, do you think there's a lot of backroom agreements? Like, yes, you're going to go after my client. You can go film them, but this one you never touch. Like, there's definitely plenty celebrities you never see on there because I feel like they laid down a line in the sand. Like, don't fuck with me. Do you think it's like that? Yeah. Well,
it's sort of like a thing I heard Antonio Banderas had when he went to Spain. When he went to his homeland to visit when he was married to Melanie Griffith, which was he made a promise: you can follow me all you want on this day and this day, but the other 5 days you leave me at peace and you never take pictures of my children or my wife. And he made that agreement with them, and they were like, okay. So I think there are certain celebrities, but I think once you're starting, your career is kind of getting cold. That's when you also start to throw yourself out there more. Like you start having your friends necessarily tip off people like, oh, he just so happens to be going to this store today if you wanted to see him. But I don't think real actors, like I don't think Robert De Niro would tip off anybody as to his whereabouts. But I think, unfortunately, in this new commodity of stardom that there seems to be, I think, unfortunately, like when you come to like people like the Kardashians, of course, they want publicity, bad, good, whatever they can get. But I think when you're really just into it for the passion and the nice paycheck, I think they are the ones who are regularly not seen. It's just like for a while here, you always hear these secondhand stories of Ryan Gosling, like, hey, he broke up a fight in the middle of the street. Hey, he did this. Hey, he did that. I think he is genuine. And when people do happen to catch him on video or take pictures of him, I don't think he tipped anybody off that he was going to. But certain other people, I do.
Yeah, it comes down to being a lady/gentleman or a whore, and so many people are media whores. Unlike us.
Why did you say Lindsay Lohan? That was so mean.
I'm sorry to mention her. I'm so sorry, but I have that. What's that? Where you just say Tourette's? I have celebrity whoredom Tourette syndrome. But
it's a shame. You should get a handle on it.
It is a goddamn shame. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not a media whore, seeing as, I do a show and you're on it and you're.
Yeah, I wouldn't be on a mainstream show.
Oh, fuck no. Yeah, it's because they're too protective of their crappy investments to let someone on who could say something unregulated.
Well, before we turn this into a total bitch session.
Oh, please do. Before.
Let me talk about the directors I do like.
Yeah. It's half the question from a while ago.
Yes, exactly.
I know, right? By the way, there's a few minutes left, so we'll slide it. Tell me about this, and then we'll call it an hour for now. But yes.
Well, I hope to come back.
Yeah.
Scorsese, of course, who is a god to me, without being religious about it.
Although he is very religious himself.
He wanted to be a priest.
Yep.
I think Paul Thomas Anderson, of course, is a really good director. Not the best, but a good one. Are you still there? Oh, okay. I didn't hear you.
Have you seen The Master?
Yes, I did. I actually saw it the first week it was out.
And it's decent or great or
I don't think it's his best work. Stylistically, it's great. Joaquin Phoenix gives a great performance, totally raw. But I mean, I guess I didn't really get that much into the story, I didn't feel passionately about the story as I do about his other films. So while it's good, I can't say it's like the best film I saw all year.
Yeah, I hear a lot of criticisms of it that it's just too vague. It's not, which might just be people showing their stupidity if they can't handle ambiguity. They need to be beat over the head with a shoe. But
I'll give him aces stylistically. It's a beautiful film to look at.
That's 70 millimeter, man.
But see, I guess I'm not one of those people. I think 70 millimeter almost looks like regular film stock. In fact, there's a CINEFILES episode coming out about this exact subject. I mean, if it's 70 millimeter, that's great. I think even if he filmed it normally, it would still be a beautiful looking film. But I think just with the old type of technology he used, only enhanced it more. Because considering it's supposed to take place in the 1940s, it kind of gives you also that kind of old school feeling.
Right. You make the technology match the time period you're telling about.
Exactly. I don't know if that was what he set out originally to do or if that was just something he thought of. You know, just like it didn't matter what time the film would be set. He just wanted to film something on 70 millimeter. But, you know, I think he's a very interesting director. And I will say he's one of my favorites, but he's not one I'm going to like ride or die for necessarily. Like Scorsese, I will ride or die for you. But Paul Thomas Anderson, I'm a great fan. I'd probably cry if I met him. But, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say, everything you touch is gold, baby. No.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's truly knocked it out of the park for me since Boogie Nights, which had all the energy that he doesn't quite have as put in as much, I feel, recently. Mm-hmm. But
that might be just youth. It's
youth and vigor and porn obsession. But
who doesn't have that?
Yeah. But he tried to get more stately. Everyone wants to be there's some quote like even a whore wants to be respectable at a certain point after a while. Not saying he's a whore, but
no, he's definitely not a whore. No.
Yeah, eventually you want to go for respect and cinema with a capital C. At least if you have any like integrity or love.
Well, it's true, but I find that out of some of the best films I'm seeing these days are actually independent people who are like struggling for budgets, and unfortunately nobody saw their film, so they're finding it harder to get their projects made. Like, for instance, Barry Jenkins, an African-American filmmaker who made a film called Medicine for Melancholy that a lot of people could say reminds them of Before Sunrise or Before Sunset, because it takes place after a one-night stand and these two people traveling around San Francisco all day. But it is one of the most beautiful and honest films I feel that has been made in a long time. But it got distribution, but I feel like no one really knows about this film. You have to really seek it out to find it. And the thing that makes it even more, to me, extraordinary is that this is an all African-American film production. And, you know, unfortunately, when it comes to African-American cinema, you don't usually see films like this that are more on the artsy side, more talkative side, and, you know, go into a more of a realistic and not doing everything for laughs or these cliched characters around the neighborhood that you constantly get with a lot of African-American cinema. And it reminds me of one of the things I've always said I wanted to see more of. I'm like, we have all these independent filmmakers trying to make movies that are mumblecore films, but you never see any minorities really try to make mumblecore movies, because I feel like they're afraid they're only going to get one chance to make a film. And if they made a mumblecore movie and it didn't make money, they're never going to get a chance to make another film. So they try not to go with things that are more experimental and try to go with stuff that's more, this will make money with a certain niche audience.
Right. And what's the name of that film again?
Medicine for Melancholy, and the director is Barry Jenkins.
I've heard that title. I heard some schmucky film critic, I think, talk about this movie. All right. You know what? Fuck the time limits. We could go further because I'm supposed to be wrapping up. Why don't we? No, we'll keep going. I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
because
Okay, that's fine with me. I have the time.
Yeah, you got the time, man. You're an MTA guy, right? I wanted to ask about that too.
Yes, I work for MTA, which is the train service of New York.
Metropolitan Transit Authority, NYC.
Yes.
And you're born and raised in New York?
The Republic of Brooklyn, New York City.
Brooklynistan. Fantastic. Yep. Fantastic. As I heard someone joke about the other day, don't you just wish someone would write a book about growing up in Brooklyn in the 50s? Because it's never been done before.
Of course not. I think we more need somebody to write a book or make a movie about growing up in Brooklyn in the 80s and 90s that isn't Everybody Hates Chris, the TV show.
Never really watched it, but yes, I would say that covers that topic, right? And Terry Crews is on it, right?
Well, yes, he was. He starred on it. Terry Crews, the best thing about that shitty movie that is called White Chicks.
Oh, another one. I incredibly have not seen the entire thing or even any.
I know the studio and the Wayans brothers are going to hate me for saying this. Just go on YouTube and look up Terry Crews scenes from White Chicks. You've seen the best parts of the movie.
Well, I have a friend who is very funny and I trust comedically that thinks White Chicks is the funniest movie of all time just because it's like how bad it is.
Well, that's probably how The Paperboy is that Lee Daniels just directed.
I don't know if it's well, Terry Crews isn't in that one.
No, but Terry Crews is in a lot of films. You never know. He could have a secret cameo.
Do you think it's shocking, or do you think it's just because he actually is funny and even talented?
Well, that was the first time I had ever seen Terry Crews in something. So, as I'm watching this crappy movie, I'm like, every time this guy's on screen, I find myself laughing hilariously. Anytime he's not, I'm like, when's he coming back?
Yeah. I just want to tell the audience I'm smoking a second half of my joint right now. Never done this before, so I should be high on air for the interview. We'd like to see how it plays out, I think.
I like that you chose my episode to experiment with.
Yeah, why not? I mean, yeah, it's cinema is a laboratory. It's all a grand experiment. America is a fucking experiment, dog.
Yes, and I'm like, all of a sudden you're getting very philosophical, I know, so I can tell.
Put down the pipe.
Yes, I would just like to say, I am 100% sober here, okay? So before anybody thinks I advocated or I started it.
Do you smoke?
Not at all, actually.
You know what? It's nothing wrong with that. It's many people.
I'm going to take the politician way of saying this.
You did not.
I am not against it, but I personally do not partake in it myself. I am more of a drinker, but not an alcoholic because I only socially drink. And
yeah, the Cinfiles seem like they can knock back a few, and you've filmed episodes in bars before, correct?
Yes, surprisingly, no one was drinking heavily when we did that show.
Well, yeah, not for the show. Most people try to at least try to be professional.
Yes.
Me sitting in my apartment, smoking the joint, doing this remote interview, no one can see me. I'll tell you, it's disclosure,
Well, at least you're truthful with your audience, but if you ever work for a professional studio, this will probably be the first note on your contract.
Yes. But no, because it's all about making your own thing. That's the whole point, is I can actually do this kind of interview talk nowadays, whereas it wasn't. I mean, I've wanted to have a talk show or be on the radio since I was 14, but there was any way to do it. I mean, no way to record any conversation with someone, even unless you were a surveillance operative. But
well, that's the beauty of, I guess, the advancement of technology. It's great that now almost anybody can do it, and if they have the talent and the passion to do it, it's great. But unfortunately, that also gives access to people who don't necessarily have the passion or talent, but think they'd be really good at it and aren't. And
yeah, have you ever heard of the book or just the concept of the long tail?
No, I haven't heard of that.
It's a fascinating book written by a guy from Wired magazine, and it's basically just this concept of the long tail sort of means the extended lifespan of something, whether it's a movie or like just some industry, and it comes down to nowadays when everything's available and there's so much more democracy in entertainment or, just media and stuff like that. It floods the marketplace, but a lot more things can have a long tail. So things that ordinarily wouldn't survive in the old school way of doing shit will now survive and find fans. Sort of like what you were talking about with those movies that maybe you spend a little bit less and let them build over time and be good and get a fan base.
Exactly. It boils down to a director I have met through one of the Cinephiles. I can't say their name for what I'm going to quote them as saying, but he basically said that, back in his day when he was making movies, you would come from, you had to work your way up. You could have gone to film school, but you might have to work as an editor or a cameraman or a camera operator and have years of experience doing that before, a studio would even let you direct a film because they wanted to make sure you knew what you were doing when they gave you your chance. Whereas today, you can have a hit YouTube video and you have studios willing to offer you $1 million contracts to make a film, even though really not necessarily anything about making a film. Like one of the things I have always said is that even though I've learned filmmaking from other people who do it professionally, one of my things is if I ever made a film, and even if it was successful, the first thing I would do, other than quitting MTA, would be then to actually go put myself through a 4-year-long or a 4-year film program so I learn every aspect and what I'm supposed to do, like the textbook way of doing it. And far from the way I would naturally might have done it with my first film.
Right. Directing's a technical skill, like any other thing, really.
Yes. And sometimes you get lucky, and you don't have to have that much technical skill. You make a film, and maybe even it gets a lot of applause. But let's say now you can't get another film, so you get offered TV directing work. Now you go onto a professional, television and film set, and you don't know the first thing of how things are supposed to be done because you're so used to when you created your own set doing it the way you want it. Now you have to do it the way it's supposed to be, the way the studio mandates it, and you're lost. And you're supposed to film this in maybe 1 or 4 days.
High turnover, high turnaround.
Exactly.
And yeah, I feel like if you were to be given the opportunity to direct a film, if one were to be given, even if you don't know every technical thing, you don't know every lens on the camera and all the shit, all the permutations of that, you have people around. If you can find someone who knows that you don't, the knowledge you don't, that's the managerial, the delegating side. Like you can at least find someone you trust
and learn from them and steal all their tricks.
Right, like Ben Affleck has with.
I am not commenting there. That is on you. Even though I use him as an earlier example, I have no problems personally with Ben Affleck. His films aren't the great. Not all of them are the great. But I will say he's at least put out enough product that has been good that I give him the benefit of the doubt. There are some people I can't. Him, I will.
I actually highly respect Affleck, specifically in the whole being a decent human being part of things. Even I don't know if he actually is. I've never met him, but
neither have I.
right, but he's he has the intelligence. He seems to be very interested in politics, and I am making the prediction on this show. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him go for a national political office in the next 10 to 15 years.
That would be interesting as long as hopefully I agree with whatever his politics are. But it will be funny as we basically watch a debate with him and whoever's going against him will become a movie reviewer using everything against him from his bad movies. Like, oh, yeah, you say you care about the people? What about Daredevil?
Yeah, exactly. You didn't care enough at that point to deliver something worthy of our eyeballs. Although it's not that bad. It's not that bad of a movie.
It didn't make me run screaming from it, but let me put it to you this way. I have a vast DVD collection. Daredevil is not it.
That is just a motherfucking shame. But they're rebooting it, and they'll wash away all the all the problems.
Yeah, because, remaking and rebooting things never have gone wrong before.
Oh,
And and how many times have they done the Hulk? And it still hasn't stuck.
well, no, now it sticks through the Avengers.
Well, yeah, but that's because you have actual talent going into the film. I mean, you have somebody who has written comic books and who loves comic books actually writing and directing, even though the Hulk is only a supporting character in that whole movie. At least you have somebody who knows the history instead of a director going into it who has to learn the history. Like, they didn't grow up with it. They might have heard of the Incredible Hulk, but they weren't actually sitting there reading the comic books, learning about the character and the different permutations of it over the years.
Yeah, that's sort of what bothered me about the new Star Trek, because I heard J.J. Abrams had no past with Star Trek at all, wasn't a fan, and yet somehow landed that job and rewrote the universe for himself. I just don't get that.
Well, I think it's also, I guess since he is even though he's never been a Star Trek fan, he is well known to be in the sci-fi. So to studios, one person sci-fi is good as another person sci-fi.
Oh, right, of course.
It's like, hey, you wrote Doctor Who? Write a new Star Wars film. George Lucas died. And, it's like two totally different sci-fi universes. And certain people have obsessions with certain things. Like me, I wouldn't say I'm a classic Star Trek fan. I'm more of the Next Generation fan. But I'm not like a huge fan. I can't be like, hey, what about episode 5 where this happened? But I actually have to say, maybe because I'm not a big fan of the old Star Trek, I had no problems with the Star Trek movie. I thought it was fun. But, I'm sure if I knew the history of Star Trek, I'd be like, this is bullshit.
So I had a more philosophical question for you. What do you think has made people obsessed with film in general? Like, from you, and what do you think, you personally, what's made that, and also people at large?
What do I think has made people
obsessed?
I think a lot of us grew up maybe with working parents more, and we grew up with cable, so that was like our babysitter.
The Cable Guy with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, well, not that bad. I think our parents actually liked us. But no, I think that we grew up, and I mean, we didn't have the computers, to distract us, and the cell phones. So if we were at home, it was either we were listening to music, watching music videos, or watching movies on cable. And, and movies were a lot more affordable if you wanted to go out to the cinema, too. So, I would like to say we saw the best movies in the world, but let's face it, you would see anything because that's what you could afford to do, and you knew you would get air conditioning for 2 hours and, well, if you snuck into other films, more, but also you have all these refreshments. You're piled with sugar in any product you have, and you got to watch cool images, so... I think, and as we grew older, that was we watch them now, we see some of those films as part, like I said earlier, as nostalgia, so that when we watch it, it's like, oh man, I remember that movie. And now that we have computers, we can find out all these little known facts about the film, and also talk to other people who are like, you like that movie too? Oh man, I love that movie. Oh, remember this scene? Remember that scene? But here's the interesting thing. It goes back to perspective again. Because you'll find film fans, we are all one as in our love of movies, but we all have differing opinions on them.
That is for sure. I was going to bring up the CINEFILES Facebook page, which has a lot of activity. I'm happy and impressed with you guys. Just tons of posts on there. And yeah, random shit. What are the 5 best William H. Macy flicks, or whatever, random questions and shit that people ask. But I was just saying, the flurry of activity there shows you how many true film fans are out there.
Yeah, and the thing that is great about it is that, and also a curse, is that they bring up subjects and it's like, damn, we can't do a show about that now because they've already talked about it on the Facebook wall.
Oh, motherfuckers. True. But before it was more that your fans would give you suggestions.
Yeah, it was like, that's long gone now. They just talk about it themselves. They're like, fuck you guys, I'm not waiting.
Shit. Yeah, you created the monster.
Exactly. So again, that's why we're hoping to create the monster of a community where it's like, yeah, we're doing it, but you guys feel free to make your own videos or maybe your own chat show with your friends. So, others, so people can hear your voices, because you never know who's listening, and you might inspire somebody yourself, and that's really the message you try to send out there. You want to do certain things, and you also want people to feel inspired by it. We're not doing this for shits and giggles, like, fuck all you. We're the end authority of, what is liked and what isn't liked. It's just like the Dario Argento show, the Cinfiles did, that I was not a part of.
Right.
But, you have Edwin, who loves everything Argento touches practically, whereas you have two guys who are just not really big fans of his work, and unfortunately then started to make fun of his work on the air, But, that doesn't mean Edwin's wrong in any sense of the word. If that's what he loves, you can't tell somebody, what you love is shit. It's what you love, but nobody made fun of anybody for it.
Yeah,
this isn't Playground rules.
It isn't what?
Playground rules, where it's like, I say what's good, what you say doesn't matter if you don't agree with me.
Yeah, a community can't be based on just making fun of someone else or everyone else.
Yeah, because I'm sure some people have watched the show or listened to this show and like, fuck you, I like away ball movies. Hey, more power to you.
I found that episode you mentioned, the Argento one of the Cinephiles, I found interesting because Edwin didn't seem to realize that the other two guys would hate it so much, would be so against his opinion completely.
Well, the thing is, like all good reviewers, you try not to tip your hat as to, this is what I think about them. You try to just say what you really feel on the air, because it's sort of like, okay, here's another surprising trivia tidbit. I was part of a reality show that never aired.
Wow.
And one of the things was, it wasn't like the real world where they could actually afford to follow you around relentlessly. So when they would take us places, like driving in the van, they couldn't have cameras on us, so they wouldn't want us to talk at all about anything, because it might ruin like a conversation for the show. So here we are sitting in this van all quiet. That is sort of like how it is with the Cinephile. We agree on a subject or movies. We watch the movies. We don't tell each other what we're going to say or what we thought about the film. And we wait to, we try to hold our opinions until we're actually filming. So then when you see like somebody actually shocked as to someone's reaction to it, whereas like, let's say three of us love it and one of us hate it, that is general shock when somebody's like, what? Instead of, I knew we were going to say that.
Yeah, it's not pre-scripted.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah, and how did you all get together in the first place to do the show?
Well, this is another one of those coincidences. Uh-huh. Well, me, Edwin, Mike, and the original Cinephiles cast member, Steve, we all auditioned for a game show, I believe, Ultimate Film Fanatic. Jesus, it's been so long.
Right.
And, we all flew on the plane together, didn't know each other, didn't talk to each other at all until we actually got to Los Angeles to film the show. Then we started talking about films, and somebody else, one who is also now a noted film critic, he's actually getting paid for it. But, he got to stay in California, whereas all of us got dumped back to New York. And that's when we finally really started talking to each other. And, after that, we got each other information and said we should stay in contact. So soon it was becoming monthly dinners where we'd sit around and just talk about movies. And we all had this, like, idea or conversation that, like, maybe we should have a show. Like, at the time, there was a show hosted by Jon Favreau called Dinner for Five.
Yes.
Where, he'd sit around with industry professionals and just talk about whatever subjects, and they tell maybe some stories, some behind-the-scenes stories. And we thought, well, what if we did like a movie review show like that, where we just pick random places and then just start talking and filming. Then we realized how difficult it would be to get location and hire people to film. So we did research, and Edwin eventually found the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, which is a community-based network where you can where if you volunteer to work on other shows, they'll teach you television production while giving you your own, half-hour time to do your own show.
Oh.
So, but you needed a Manhattan, address, and at the time, Edwin was the only person who had a Manhattan address. So he had to, basically intern there and learn TV production. And then, unfortunately, as the years went on, he was also the only one who could edit the show. And then, unfortunately, Steve moved on to other ventures. So we really needed to find a fourth. And luckily, Mike brought in Eric Cohen. And he was also, heavily into film, very good at film criticism. And he fit right in there. And so, he joined the show. And also, he helped Edwin because he could also edit because he knows camera equipment and production and has actually gone to film school. So, that is basically how the Cinephiles got started. Though an argument could be made because each one of us claims we were the one who came up with the original idea of it being a movie review show.
Well, how could it be anything else? You guys met on the film trivia show.
Well, yeah, it wasn't like we were all of a sudden, hey, let's talk about music.
Right. Or even film scores exclusively.
No, but I'm sure that's coming in the pipeline for a show episode sooner or later.
Oh, you're sure it'll be there? Yeah. How do you, if people are using all of their ideas just to post on Facebook, how do you come up with new episodes at this point?
Well, at this point, it seems like since the beginning, we pretty much explored or pretty much just burned out on exploitation and cult cinema. So it's more like, let's start becoming a little more universal in things. So, of course, there's always, we each are fans of different people or different genres, or we just find things we haven't talked about a lot. Sort of like, I'm trying to think of like an example of a show. But like Terry Gilliam, for instance,
right,
has been a show we've wanted to do for years. But, it was always, okay, we all have to watch all the films.
Yeah.
And as anybody who watches the show knows, we all have different jobs, real jobs. So it's not as easy to like, oh, of course, I have so many days free to watch all this stuff. So it was more of a time of trying to get all those films down. So while that one's waiting in the wings, we have to come up with another show. So we usually try to be democratic where it's like, okay, we've used Eric's idea for these set of tapings. Now it's time, okay, Jeff, you think of some tapings. Or Mike, you think of some tapings.
Right. So brain trust.
Yeah, and sometimes we can't come up with episodes, so we'll all try to inspire each other to come up with things. Or sometimes if we can't, like if somebody hasn't seen all the films and it's last minute, we'll come up and talk about films that we know like the back of our hand. Hence the Die Hard movies.
There you go.
So it's like, okay, yeah, we all know this subject. So sometimes it's just the luck of last minute timing. Sometimes it's intricately planned out.
Now, who is the person actually behind the camera directing the thing?
That is Gloria, who is our director, who Edwin met through, of course, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Edwin produces the show. She actually directs it.
And she does the like editing type little stuff, or is that more Edwin?
No, that's Edwin and Eric who do more editing.
Right. Edwin and Eric are basically the ones behind your show, Unfinished Business, behind the camera. And
on Unfinished Business, but Unfinished Rough Cuts, that is me and my trusty iPhone 4S.
Oh, Rough Cuts, meaning you film yourself out in the park or whatnot?
Or I might have a friend hold the camera for me. But basically, it's just me, all one take. That's why you'll probably hear so many ums. Whereas when it's Unfinished Business, it can be edited, if I pause or if I have a hard time remembering a word or a statistic. But, when it's Unfinished Business Rough Cuts, it's all one take right then and there. You're getting it live, baby.
You like it raw.
No. It depends on the lady.
Straight out of Brooklyn.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say. I was gonna say. It seems like you get pretty good sound for just having an iPhone outdoors of you ranting.
I like to think of it as reviewing more than ranting, but okay.
It is reviewing. Well, let's say, speaking off the cuff.
Yeah, speaking of that, because when it sounds like ranting, it makes me sound like, again, my enemy, the internet troll over there, like, you know what else I don't like? You know.
No, I don't mean it in crotchety old man ranting sense. Just that, just going off on something.
Okay, because trust me, I will probably be a crotchety old man if I don't find love. But that's a movie I have planned. But,
yes.
But yes, I mean, also, I'm going to say so far I've given my life to film because, honestly, I would like to think if I probably had a girlfriend, I probably wouldn't be doing as much film writing as I do. And also, I'd probably see a lot more shitty films.
Right, the date flicks, rom-coms.
Yeah, where it'd be like, oh, let's go see Valentine's Day. You know, right now I have the power to say no. But, you know, if I had a girlfriend, of course, I'd be like, okay, but you've got to go see this new Wong Kar-wai film with me.
But it might inspire you to write even more, just do even more film/passion related stuff.
Yeah, so I just couldn't mention who I went to go see with or why. I'd be like, I just happened to see one for the money. I'm not going to tell you why I saw it, but let me tell you this. You know, but...
No, you work it in there. It's like, yeah, she dragged me to see it. My wife dragged me to see it.
I'll be like, yeah, she dragged me to see it, and I love her so much, but not, of course, not at the top of my list of films I want to see.
And you live in Brooklyn, you said, right?
Yes, I live in Brooklyn, the Republic of Brooklyn.
But there's definitely plenty ladies out there, I would have to say, or at least in the New York area.
No, it's just a manless. It's just men. No, yes, there are plenty of ladies, but, you know, when you... I'm not trying to sound sexist here, but mostly when you see a girl or woman you like,
yes,
you know, and you start talking about good films or your favorite cinema, you know, half the films you mentioned, they've never heard of. You know, it's like, oh, I love Fallen Angels by Wong Kar-wai, and they're like, who? But, you know, you mentioned, like, oh, I love Dirty Dancing. That's my favorite.
Yes. Just stick to Dirty Dancing and Pretty Woman.
Unfortunately, yes, that seems to be true. But I have met a few cool girls out there who like good independent cinema. I mean, I have a best friend who's a female, and she says I'm like her movie guide because basically when we go to the movies, half the time I usually pick, and you know it's films she's never even heard of, but she usually enjoys the films.
Yeah, I mean, there's cinema opportunities out there that you want to get.
Yes, it's just like there's somebody I met through Facebook who is an actress, writer, basically a muse. She actually goes by the name Yumi Muse, and I have to say she has some of the good insights on film and actually likes really good cinema. You know, it's so rare that you meet a girl who has actual. No offense to all women, I haven't met all women. But it's rare that you meet, you know, women who actually have such good taste in films, or at least like the films that you like.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, yeah, this is why someone like Katherine Bigelow is such a anomaly in the game.
Yeah, but I have been a Katherine Bigelow fan, like I'm sure many people have said now.
Yes.
But you have to. I'm going to say for me it's true because I have loved Katherine Bigelow movies ever since I saw Point Break in the movie theater. That still is in my top 3 action films of all time. I'll admit it's stupid as hell, but it is greatly photographed and just fun. And after that, after seeing Point Break, that inspired me to go out and see Blue Steel with Jamie Lee Curtis and Ron Silver.
Yes, recently passed. Yeah, another good film.
Exactly. And then from that, I discovered, I didn't even know she had directed it, that she had made Near Dark, which was one of my favorite movies to watch on home video. That scared the hell out of me, but I thought had an original scene, though it doesn't make sense in vampire lore, where the female love interest actually opens her wrist and lets her boyfriend or love interest drink from her wrist because he's going through deprivation of drinking blood. And I thought, I have never seen that in a vampire film before. That is different.
That's apparently also a vampire film where they never say the word vampire.
I think that was intentional because then once you start saying the word vampire, it gets a certain stigma, like now the audience is going to roll their eyes like, oh, vampires, come on.
Now.
Yeah, and
exactly.
it's more like a Drifter kind of story more than anything that just happens to have vampirism in it.
Yeah, and I think all these films that you mentioned, when Katherine Bigelow got the Academy Award for Hurt Locker, I feel like it was also an acknowledgement of the other things she had done, the other works all through the years, which seems to be an Academy staple. Like, you award people for more than just the one thing you're giving it to them. Right?
Of course. Yeah, because it's
Scorsese. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like politics, unfortunately, now when it comes to the Oscars. Not that you actually were the best this year, but we owe it to you so. Right. Because I remember before The Hurt Locker, the last studio film she made was like K-19 The Widowmaker, which starred Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson. Right. About a Russian sub. And before that, her movie before that actually starred Sean Penn went straight to home video before that was in. It was called The Weight of Water. It also had Elizabeth Hurley in it, who might have helped it go straight to home video. But like one of the films I love that only people are discovering now was Strange Days, which she directed and was co-written by her ex-husband, James Cameron. Yep.
Classic. One of my favorite flicks.
Yes, I saw that in theaters. That was the first Ray Fiennes movie I had actually ever seen.
That was early in the Rafe career.
Back when he had the good hair.
He had that good hair, yeah.
Exactly.
He was what Nicolas Cage became envious of.
Exactly. That's why all his toupees must look like that now.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. No, but definitely a great film, and yeah, shows you that collaboration. Like, Bigelow and Cameron collaborated on that and were married, and then they went head-to-head years later at the Oscars, and she won. It's a very interesting dynamic.
They're just always either collaborating or against each other. No, I was going to say, give them each knives and tie them at the wrist and let's see who walks out of the room.
Yeah, ex-couple type thing.
Exactly. But, I mean, they're both talented in their own ways. I would say James Cameron is more of a technical filmmaker, but I would say Katherine Bigelow is a more in-your-face director, though.
She's quite visceral in the moment.
Exactly. And maybe that's why I enjoy her as a filmmaker more than James Cameron, because while James Cameron does make technical marvels, there just seems to be that whole passion or maybe heart missing.
I thought Avatar was a big disappointment.
I had no passion to see Avatar, but once, they start. I really went to see Avatar because they were saying how this is going to be the future of films and how they're made. So I wanted to see the technology in use. That is really the only reason. I had no great passion to see it. It's just like a lot of films, some fanboys, as they're called, are, they die to see. You gotta. It takes a long time for me to get past. Like Prometheus, for instance. Yeah. Everybody since the inception of that film was like, I gotta see this. I must see this. I was like, eh. And then once I saw the first trailer, that's when it got me. But before that, I was like, I don't really care. Because as I've said in some of my other episodes, I'm not the hugest Ridley Scott fan. I respect him, but I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the biggest fan of his work.
Yeah, Prometheus, another huge disappointment. Not to be that cynical asshole, critical internet type, but yeah, you have to expect more. Like, I'm demanding more because they've set this bar. I love the Ridley Scott Blade Runner / Alien, those sort of things, but I can never get too excited for any flick at this point on that level, on the fanboy level, because there's always issues. There's always studio problems, tinkering. It's just maybe not James Cameron or either of their cases, Ridley Scott, James Cameron, but I don't know if it's an age thing or you really just do lose your mojo like Austin Powers or...
What are you talking about as a film viewer or as a film director?
As a film director, in terms of
Well, you got to keep, like we were saying earlier about Paul Thomas Anderson, when you're youthful and vigor and all this stuff is new to you, it's sort of like when I read sometimes people on the Facebook page where they're like, oh man, when I become a director, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do that. It reminds me of, no offense, the arrogance of youth where you're all about, I'm never going to sell out. But once you get older, you realize you don't have as many options and you don't have the time and patience like you once did to, stay true necessarily to your art. Sometimes you just do want to do things to make money, but you convince yourself, you know what, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to make it my way. So even though I am selling out a little, I'm not totally selling out.
Yeah, I've heard Ridley Scott quoted as saying, yeah, I'm very impatient on the set because I'm so experienced. Like, in other words, I don't have time to be patient. So
exactly. Whereas when you're younger, being on the set, you're more willing to, like, learn from the experience or try different things. But, I mean, either way, one way or another, it's good. One way or another, it's bad. Because sometimes if you're young and do too much experimenting, if I'm sitting there watching your film, I might be wondering, what the hell is going on? Whereas when you have somebody like Ridley Scott with a sure hand, he knows what he's doing. He's not going to go over budget. He knows exactly what he wants, and that's it. And sometimes that's a little more reassuring. It all really depends what type of film you're making, too.
Right. You try to return to sci-fi after 28 years or whatever.
Yeah, and the rules have changed.
Yeah, it might not go completely smooth, but yeah.
The people have spoken,
people have spoken.
Whereas back when Aliens was made, it was like, okay, we think everybody likes it, so let's make another one. Right. But now it's like, no, we got too huge of a backlash from just the one you made.
Yeah, there's many problems. I mean, Alien versus Predator series sort of put the kibosh on anticipation for alien-related stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, it didn't help that the Alien versus Predator movies weren't actually that great. And,
No, not really. I haven't seen any of them, so.
Oh, well,
film freak.
Yeah, the second one, I will say, at least they went with old school special effects, man in suit, handmade effects instead of everything being digital.
Right. I mean.
It's sort of like what ruined the sequel to An American Werewolf in London, American Werewolf in Paris, is that you never get scared because you can tell everything, all the monsters, that's all digital. So how am I supposed to be afraid of a cartoon?
That's what they want you. They'll put it in your head.
I'm like, so basically what you're saying is that when I watch Looney Tunes, I'm supposed to be afraid that Elmer Fudd's actually going to shoot the rabbit. And
well, going by that logic, you could never feel that in an animated film by Pixar or anything. Could you?
Oh, well, that's good. Oh, I see a debate here. But by that same logic, let me ask you this. Okay, Pixar seems realistic, but here's another thing that also helps, that probably helps your argument more than mine. Also, good screenwriting helps. Because if you write, like the Pixar films, for all their technical advancements, they're actually well-scripted films, whereas An American Werewolf in Paris, probably not the best scripted film ever.
Screenwriting is the lost art of the cinema at this point because
and the shameful thing is that's basically where it all starts. Is that okay? I created this great idea, and it's so impressive. You want to make it and put, like, let's say $60 million into it, but now that I've sold you the rights to it, I'm going to take everything that was original and great about this script and sand it away to make it another basic film that the studio releases.
Yeah, when the scripts become commodities to be passed around and tinkered with, then, like you said, with the 32 screenwriters, that's the beginning of the end.
Yes, then my favorite part of all of this is that, you know what? We loved your story. We love that you brought it to us. Now we're firing you off the project and bringing on a totally new writer.
Yeah, writing something that can't be computer generated away with technical advancements. We can't.
No, go ahead.
We can't yet have a machine pump out screenplays by the dozen that we know of.
They're keeping that under wraps.
Right. Although it feels like it watching these films.
Well, generally, it's not a machine. It's called a guy who wants to work. So then the studio tells him, this is what we want in the film. Now do it. And
Yeah.
because that guy wants to keep working, he does exactly what the studio notes tell him. And sometimes I can't prove it, but I honestly think sometimes the notes are probably less originality.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you my last question, and then we'll wrap it up for the moment, and I'll let you plug some stuff and whatnot. So what would you do if you actually ran Hollywood or the world in general?
I was about, oh, God.
How would you how would you change things?
Well, I'll just go with a studio for right now, not the world. That's too broad a question.
True.
Studios, like I said, I'd probably invest in more smaller projects. I can understand the adherence of maybe afraid of some originality. I guess if I was budgeting something at $200 million, I might want to take a little bit of originality and put something that would more sell to people. But I think, first of all, I'd actually hire people who can act would be one of the main things. You know, I'm not saying all actors out there can't act, but my thing is if I'm paying you $20 million, I think the least you could give me is a good performance. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I'd more want to work with people I feel have raw talent rather than somebody who's just going to give me necessarily what I tell them. You know, like as they call them, hacks. I don't want somebody who's going to make a film as dictated by me. I want somebody who's going to give me something I never saw coming. You know, not horrible I didn't see coming, but, you know, something good I didn't see coming, you know? Like, okay, I might bitch about Darren Aronofsky on and off, but I will give the fact that he does have an originality of vision. And
he has his own take, his own voice.
Exactly. And now that is a guy I'm going to probably want to put my money on rather than, again, a Brett Ratner, because I know he might have a passion for movies, but all he's giving me is imitation of better movies that were better made than anything he ever made.
But they make that dough. They clock those dollars.
Well, yeah, if I put Ben Stiller and all these stars in a film, there's got to be somebody who wants to see one of these craps. You know, and surprisingly, the best film he made was, you know, a film that starred like Pierce Brosnan and Salma Hayek, who were not the biggest stars at the time. I mean, it's stupid as hell, but After the Sunset has a lot of great set pieces in it, you know, and it kind of plays like a sequel to the Thomas Crown Affair.
With Pierce
Brosnan.
Yeah, I think James Lipton said something like, "I was honored to show my class After the Sunset."
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I'd be like, hey, here's a free DVD. You might want to check this out. It ain't as bad as it seems.
Not so much.
But, you know, I couldn't really tell. I mean, I liked the old Hollywood system, but I think also it created a bunch of great stories about films back in the day, because it'd be like, oh, well, she only did this film because she was under contract.
Yeah.
But you'd be like, but you know what? This film still kind of kicks ass, too. You know, even though obviously she doesn't want to be in this film. But I think it's also, that's what's missing from star quality. Back in the 50s, 60s, you had stars who could do it all. They could dance, they could sing, they could act, they could do it all. If whatever you had to put them in, they could adapt to it. Now it's like, okay, this person can do comedy, but they can't necessarily do drama, or at least the studios make it seem that way. It's like, Zach Galifianakis is hilarious in this. Now watch him do drama, and then people are like, but that's not the thing I like to see him in most. Whereas in the old times, you could watch Cary Grant do comedy, enjoy him in that, and enjoy him in a drama. And I feel like that is what is missing from today's entertainers. It's not necessarily their fault. It's also sometimes the way they're presented to the audience from the studios, too. Even though, of course, studios don't own actors anymore.
So they say.
So they say. I mean, nobody owns Arnold Schwarzenegger, but, you know, he can make pretty much any movie he wants to make.
Or maybe could years ago.
He could. Well, it's just like one studio exec who refused to be named said, hey, if Will Smith wanted to make a movie about the Ku Klux Klan where he was the star of the film and starred as the person who started the Ku Klux Klan, they'd put the money into it because they think it would make money. Whereas, let me not get started on race and Hollywood. That's a whole.
That's for the next interview. I wanted to touch on that, but we'll do that for the next time.
Okay, because I was about to say that's a whole 2 hours in of itself.
Yeah, that will talk about race and black cinema and all that sort of thing.
Okay, I'm up for that.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, so the theme of this show is that I look like Brett Ratner.
Okay, if that's how you want to label it, that's good.
No, I actually do, but it's weird. But okay. Yeah, so
you also wear a lot of sleeveless vests.
Surprisingly, yes.
Oh, you do live in California. So.
No, I don't do the vest over a bare chest look or anything like that.
Okay, and you're not going to tell wild sex tales about Olivia Munn, are you?
No, but does he have those?
Yes, in a way. He tries not to name her, but then she came out later and said, and kind of debunked the story, but said, yeah, she once auditioned for him and such happened.
Oh, yeah, I need to have those as well. I'll take those along with the look-alike thing.
Okay, well, then you should know Lindsay Lohan then.
Maybe I will at some point. Yeah, I probably know people that know her, but she's out. Good. Yeah, you got it. It's all about being one step from that superstar, right? Then the haterism creeps in. They block your step.
Well, don't forget, we're all only 6 degrees away from Kevin Bacon.
I know. If we're that close to him, imagine how close we are to everyone else.
Exactly, especially Lindsay Lohan. She's been everywhere.
Yes, we're all doppelgangers and whatnot. All right, so plug your stuff. It's pretty simple, and I'll link it, but tell the people where they can look at you.
Well, they could look at this beautiful visage on Facebook. I am Jeff Gallashaw, my actual name. But also you could catch us on the CINEFILES Facebook page, me and the rest of the reviewers and the community. You could also check out Unfinished Business TV, the Facebook page. That's for a little more of my commentary and preview and movie news. But I try to stay on both. I also have Unfinished Business Production page. I don't go there as much as I try to do it as an inspirational page for filmmaking and maybe projects I might have coming up. But now we also have the blog, which is cinefilestv.blogspot.com, which is the blog where we write movie reviews and commentary that is more single focused, not more of a community thing. Of course, we want you to come by and comment, but, I try to go there to review older films like 80s, 90s, and some films that have just recently come out. This was all before Unfinished Business Rough Cuts. But then Unfinished Business Rough Cuts episodes, which are filmed by me and my talented cameraman of people holding the camera, as Unfinished Business TV. The channel is on YouTube, and that's where I try to review more recent films that have come out. And also we have the CINEFILES TV, which is a channel on YouTube also, but it's really just under CINEFILES, where we have old episodes of the CINEFILES and the more polished Unfinished Business episode. As you can see, we're quite a few places. And if that wasn't enough, we're going on a blowout sale, and we went to Twitter too.
Oh.
Yes, I know. It's amazing. We're also on Vimeo, but I'm not big on that, so I couldn't give you an exact address, but you can find it on the Facebook page easily, the Vimeo address. Go ahead.
Yeah, I imagine people just watch it on YouTube, but yeah, watch them on every platform.
Exactly.
Vimeo, whatever.
If you're more the auteur.
Yes.
But on Twitter, I am Unfinished B1, which is where I do more of the film-related tweets, as they call it. There's the CINEFILES TV, which is where you can find more, CINEFILES blog. And if you more want to get in touch with me through Twitter, I'm at Mr. Universe on Twitter. That is where I put out my more personal tweets. And surprisingly, that's it for, the plugs. I mean, if you go to my YouTube page, Unfinished Business TV, you see my bad attempts of making a music video 3 times.
Wow.
Yes.
I'll have to check that out.
But all with different footage. But also, mostly it's more of the reviews that are there. And that's what I'm here to plug here for now.
Not that it's a plug advertising-based show.
No, it's not. I just want to get out there. If you find me entertaining talking, you can also find me written on all these other places.
Yes.
And some video.
Well, I find you very entertaining, good talkingness, and yeah, that's a scanner's-like head-exploding amount of content you just mentioned, but it's all worth checking. I've watched a ton of it myself.
All at once?
Not all at once, yes. Set up like 57 screens.
Oh,
and watch every episode of the CINEFILES for 3 years. But no, it's good. Something, I don't know what makes it so heavenly to just watch some dude sitting around talking film, but I don't know. It's just, it's calming, it's relaxing, and it's opinionated even.
Yes, I like to think of it as sitting around with your friends and watching them just discuss movies.
That's the idea. So, yeah, all right. People will check it out. And that wraps this up. We have achieved an epic conversation with Jeff Gallashaw. I'm Scott. Listen to this. That's it.
Gripping the wheel, his knuckles went white with desire. The wheels in his Mustang exploding on the highway like a slug from a 45. True death. 400 horsepower of maximum. Yeah.